SREDILSKCaB The Briggs family. Ain't nothing but a G thing, baby. God or gang, Monique always succeed. Q5, 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 Q5 rest, hollered their fraternal headmaster and big brother Ernie, pronounced Ernie. They'd been marching up and down steps, running errands, and virtually doing everything a do boy was created to do. Everything was designed to humiliate, belittle, and degrade them into stepping out of line so that they could be put offline. I think these little sissies have had enough for tonight, Q5 brothers. Big brother Ernie yelled to his fellow frat brothers as they formed a circle around the pledges. What y'all think? He asked the others as the pledges assumed their positions and remained perfectly still. I think we ought to address the rumor going around about a virgin stink that's in the camp polluting up the air, replied Nothin, a junior and Q5's second in command. What? What's that you say, brother Nothin? Somebody's perpetrating manhood, but they ain't never touched the end of the rainbow? Big brother Ernie bellowed vehemently as he kicked over a garbage can. Everyone remained motionless, praying that his wrath wouldn't fall upon them as trash and litter contents flew everywhere. I'm only going to pose this question once. And to the man that lies, he's going to wish he'd never crossed my path, Big brother proceeded. Which one of you yellowback mama boys is still innocent? He inquired apparently. No one moved a muscle. Look, we received our information from a reliable source. It might have been your mama. He high-fived all the brothers and circled the group as they danced and laughed hysterically. In case you think this is a joke, you infants will remain on the line till the guilty party steps forth. I got all night. Hey, brother June man, give me a beer so I can at least get my buzz on, Big brother Ernie insisted. Johnny Bo cleared his throat. Which one of you low-life jitterbugs is making noise on my line? Big brother Ernie insisted, instantly jumping up out of his lounge chair, hoping to intimidate the culprit. I did. Johnny Bo Jr. stepped out in front of the line with his hand upraised. I don't know if there's another virgin here, but I'm one, Johnny Bo Jr. admitted. What you mean by that, pledge? Big brother Ernie said as he stood face to face with Johnny Bo Jr. You trying to say, pretty boy, that I lost control of my jurisdiction? Ain't no other Daisy here but you, smelling up the place. What you got to say about that, church boy? Big brother remarked. All I have to say is that I don't apologize for what I've come to stand for, Big brother Ernie, sir, Johnny Bo Jr. replied as he stared straight ahead. Is that right? Well, it so happens that we're going to put your standards to a test sooner than you think. This time, all the brothers joined in again, laughing and making jokes about how they were going to spoil the good boys' rep. Yeah, about that, big brother, sir. Sir, if it's all right with you, I'm planning to remain a virgin until God shows me my wife, Johnny Bow Jr. couldn't help responding on his behalf. Directly behind him, he heard Jazante and a few of the other pledges admonish him. "Shut up, man! Can't you see we're tired?" Jazante continued to whisper. "Brother June, man." "Yes, sir, big brother, sir." "Tell Pledge Johnny Bow Jr. over there that tomorrow night is his lucky night." A sinister sneer enveloped Big Brother Ernest's countenance as he observed Johnny Bow Jr.'s pensive response. "Tomorrow night, Mr. Johnny Boy, you're in luck, because that's the night you're going to meet the missus," June Man related as he was commanded. "You either take it to the house or hit the highway. In other words, I can't guarantee a wedding, but I do know a joining of two fleshes better take place." "Is that clear, church boy?" Big Brother Ernest asked. "It's clear, Big Brother Ernest, sir," Johnny Bow Jr. answered, trying to swallow back the tears that threatened the brim of his eyes. "What have I got myself into?" he thought as he stepped back in line, looking up toward the ceiling. "What have I done?" Just a little tidbit before I dismiss. If Prince Charming backs out tomorrow, I'm dropping everybody from the line. Big Brother Ernest's voice menacingly reverberated throughout the courtyard, and the entire atmosphere became somber. Johnny Bow Jr. felt his strength diminish as he'd taken into account the fact that the fate of his fellow pledges rested upon his shoulders. "That's it! Get!" Big Brother Ernest pointed toward Backwood, the men's freshman dormitory. Johnny Bow Jr. stood in front of Hope Hall, the women's upper-class dormitory, with his hands clasped before God, asking for forgiveness for what he was about to do. He then entered the side door, which was supposed to be locked, but was conveniently left open for a few, the proud, the promiscuous. Fortunately, though, he didn't have to pass anyone in the stairwell, and the third-floor hallway was empty as well. The note that was left in his mailbox said, "If you really pledge allegiance, I hope to see you 3 for 3 to 10 minutes at 11, and oh, yeah, bring a raincoat, sunshine," spelt with an O. Translation was to be at Hope Hall, women's dorm, at 11 o'clock, go to the third floor, room 310, the female's name was Sanshira, and don't forget a condom. All of this was necessary because the note was grounds for suspension and expulsion with a conclusive investigation. Once he was near 310, he could hear Teddy Pendergrass's crooning from within. "Turn off the lights," he sang, "and light a candle." After taking a deep breath, Johnny Bow Jr. softly tapped on the door, as to not disturb her dorm mates, as the door eased open. "It's on you, big boy. Come in," Sanshira said seductively. She had on hot pink lingerie with a sheer jacket and a lace garter belt affixed to her thigh. Johnny Bow Jr. could hardly believe his eyes. She was the junior class president and varsity cheerleader who wore glasses and always appeared timid and shy. For God's sake, she even worked in the library and volunteered with the retirement home committee. Was this gorgeous bombshell the same person he looked past every day? He pondered, standing inside the doorway dumbfounded. "You gonna stand there and let me freeze? Or are you going to come in?" and warm a sister up, she said. I was just, he was flustered and couldn't think past her lovely eyes. So he closed the door and leaned against it while he tried to catch his breath. She had brown skin, coarse shoulder length hair, and a tiny waist with silky, smooth, shapely legs. All this came along with a beautiful baby face. How could this lovely lady be a woman of ill repute? Look, my time is valuable. In case you haven't noticed, this time she leaned over, blew out the candle lit directly behind her on the headboard's ledge, exposing a little more from the back than he could handle. Trust me, it's all me, baby. Sanshira offered from beneath her sheer trappings that could be misconstrued as clothing, and lowered her straps so that they hung off her shoulders. After Johnny Bow Jr. closed the door, she motioned for him to come closer. I thought you to be a nerd the way they described you being green and virtually untouched, she said, trying to ease the tension that developed between them both. I'll be doggone if they didn't leave out the part about you being a BWB. A brother with a body. 'Cause, brother, you are hot. I can honestly say, you, Mr. Johnny Bow Briggs Jr., that you have it going on. She was a pro because by this time, she'd removed his jacket, hat, shirt, shoes, and socks. If I didn't have a rule about dating freshmen or falling in love at first sight, I'd be in trouble. Whoa. This she whispered as she rolled her fingers through his curly locks, intermittently kissing his neck, eyes, nose, and eventually his lips. Johnny Bow Jr. continued to stand stiffly in one place, afraid to allow his mind to think on what his body had already experienced. He began to shiver. He wasn't sure from the pulsation in his senses, which were screaming pleasure, or from the temperature in the room. One thing was for sure, he was at an important juncture in his walk. Literally torn between pulling up his pants and running like Joseph or yielding like Samson. Before he could decipher between the two thoughts, he felt her cold fingers extract his private parts from their domain, and the swirling sensation of bewildered, he quickly looked down. Her tongue was on the tip of his manhood. He hurriedly removed himself from her fingers' grasp and shook his head no. That he certainly wasn't ready for. Call him what you wanted. He had some dignity. Even in the dark, he could sense her disappointment. But she didn't stop there, but allowed her tongue and lips to travel elsewhere. She proceeded upwards, adventuring from his stomach to his chest, leaving a trail here and there as she professionally administered his protective gear. You're lost, sailor, she commented, slapping him on the side of his behind. Ooh, woo. You sure are packing quite a secret for such a decent young man, he heard her say as she licked her lips sumptuously and continued to stare at him like a piece of sirloin steak. Suddenly, she placed her hands around his midsection and pulled him toward her so they both fell onto the bed with him on top of her. Afterwards, she rolled him over so that she ended up on top of him, her body completely exposed, while he still had on his pants. Now, let's get this party started, she whispered hoarsely as she rubbed her body against his. As she unconsciously solicited his help to remove his pants, he began to lose all reason and allowed himself to be controlled by the dictates of his flesh. His partner was so lost in the fulfillment of her purpose to turn him into what she decreed to be a man that she was oblivious to the tears streaming down his face. When she finished gyrating upon his manhood, he felt the culmination of a whirlwind mixed with an explosion erupting deep inside, threatening at any moment to travel to the surface and drive him out of his mind. His body convulsed violently, and he lost all of his prior inhibitions and began to force his body in the direction of its pull. Gravity had lost its hold, and he floated off into ecstasy as he let out a groan from deep within his soul. The bed rocked and reeled and came to a standstill as their bodies violently shuddered together for a moment as gratification was exchanged
Why, God, why?
with exhaustion. Johnny Bow Jr. immediately pushed Sanshira off of him so that he could put his clothing. Johnny Bow Jr. immediately pushed Sanshira off him so that he could put his clothing back on. He then made his way toward the door. Just as he put his hand onto the doorknob, she leaned over the bed's edge, and he felt her tugging his pants leg. Just like that, Mr. Johnny Bow Briggs Jr.? She inquired in the dark. You're going to leave? Like nothing happened? Not daring to trust himself to face her, Johnny Bow Jr. replied with his back turned. What is there to say? Everyone's got their wish. Jazante won't be embarrassed by me anymore. The pledges are still online. Q-Fi saved their rep. And lastly, you weren't made to fall in love at first sight or face the trauma of dating a low-life freshman such as myself. What about you, Mr. Johnny Bow Briggs Jr.? Were you satisfied? She asked, seemingly genuinely concerned. Satisfied? Hell yes! But you tell me, what will it profit to gain this whole stinking world and to lose my soul? He cried. If it makes you feel good to hear, I'll confess that you ignited a flame deep inside my soul that engulfed me in delight, not to mention damnation. It's just that it wasn't supposed to happen this way. What way? She asked. I was waiting to share this experience with my wife because I wanted to present her with something she deserved. And what, pray tell, was that, pretty boy? She inquired further. All of me, he answered as he opened the door and ran through the corridor, down the steps, and out of the door to safety. That night, Johnny Bow Jr. lay in his bed trying to understand how he'd allowed himself to compromise all that he stood for in just 48 short hours. How God must be up in heaven looking down at him with such disappointment. With outstretched hands, he lamented silently so that he wouldn't awaken his roommate. And he begged God's forgiveness. Never again was he going to allow himself to be controlled by his flesh. And first thing, tomorrow morning, he was quitting Q-Fi. He earnestly believed Jazante to be his friend, but he was his own man. Why did he have to prove anything to anyone? Why couldn't it be all right for him to wait on Mrs. Wright? Or at least who he felt was right for him. As he drifted off to sleep, the scent of Sanshira haunted his nostrils so much that he became aroused. The words cold shower popped into his head. Although he'd already thoroughly showered, he got up and headed for the bathroom with his towel in his hand. The next morning, he woke up early so he could slip out of the room undetected and unquestioned. He headed in the direction of the library and ran into one of the big brothers who handed him a note. After using his ID badge to enter the library, he headed straight for the room called the think tank. This is where the serious students went to study and to get major assignments done in peace, which promised him no danger from being found by his peers. Just wanted to let you know you made the highest score ever on your test. Sincerely, Big Brother Ernay. P.S. You got such a rave review that we decided to let you jump the line and become an official Big Brother without finishing your pledge. Keep this on the down low. Totally incredulous is what he felt. What's up with this? He thought out loud as he perused the contents of the note again. It had to be a trick, he further surmised, just from spending one night with Sanshira Sedano? And he was in the clique? No way! Why would they make a novice king of the hill? What was the underlying theme here? Well, he contemplated if they thought for 1 minute that he was going to let them pull the wool over his eyes, they were sadly mistaken. Johnny Bow Jr. forgot that he'd gone to the think tank to get some tranquility, but opted instead to get to the bottom of this new situation. In the interim, he decided to get to the rec room before any of the other pledges showed up for their daily do-boy list, so that he could confront the big brothers privately. The school was fashioned so that the rec was actually in the midst of the atrium behind the school. Beautiful palm trees adorned the walkway that led from the male and female dorms to form a Y shape. Each seating area had already begun to be populated with students determined to get an early start on their workload. As he crossed by one particular table, he noticed the unmistakably stunning physique of Sanshira Sedano and her entourage, the feline foxes, and tried to ease by undetected. A voice cleared and interrupted his well-laid plan of escape, so that he had no choice but to turn in that direction. Not only had Sanshira begun to head in his direction, but her gal pals followed closely behind. All he could think of in the back of his mind was, what did everyone know? It's like that, huh, Mr. Johnny Bow Jr.? She kidded. You all that? Sanshira had come so close to him that he was breathing in her breath. It was so appealing that he began to feel hypnotized. That's what they say, he responded, stepping back so that he could gain control of himself. Who is they? She asked, looking around the campus. Tell them they ain't got nothing on sweet sunshine. I make dreams happen. All of her girls began to hoot and holler and give each other dap. Well, I'm trying to say is that I want to know if I can continue to help you with your homework tonight. Could this be the same young lady that had not less than 24 hours ago admitted that she never fell in love at first sight and considered freshmen the bottom of the barrel? He marveled. I already turned in that assignment, he replied. But if I get another assignment like that one, I'll keep you in mind, he commented and turned to walk away. But she grabbed his coattail, yanking him so hard that he stopped. At the same time, he continued to face forward with his back turned to her and her friends. Look, do you know it's a privilege to be seen with me? So I suggest you reconsider, she possessively stated. I could really make things happen for you around here if you keep on being good to me. This time she whispered into his ear and allowed her tongue to trim the outer rim, all the while creeping her fingers over the top of his head. No, you look. I'm not going to be your boy toy. And if I need you again, I know where you are. In the meantime, consider this. I am what's happening around here. And don't you forget who'd better be good to who, he replied, then turned to leave after seeing her stunned expression, coupled with her friends' if looks could kill stares. Somehow, he could sense it wasn't over as he again made his way toward the wreck. Once he'd entered the wreck, his eyes immediately fastened upon the game room where Big Brother Ernest and his counterparts. Once he'd entered the wreck, his eyes immediately fastened upon the game room where Big Brother Ernest and his counterparts were located. They immediately saluted him with their cans of Coke and invited him to come join them in the game room, which was known as the G Room. Since they were so entrenched in their session, he decided to stop by the rack and pick up a pool stick so he could challenge the winner. It was just his fortune that as soon as he descended the steps leading into the pool parlor, his time was up, and he was up against Big Brother Ernest himself. Instantly following the balls being racked, they began the game. And to Big Brother's chagrin, he was the victor. You full of surprises, pledge. J. Jr. Big Brother Ernest responded in his usual cool demeanor as he examined Johnny Bow Jr. with a note of pride. I assume you here to accept our offer to jump you into Q5, he queried, his hands folded across his buffed running back shape. All of the big brothers were attentive, awaiting his response, especially since this move would be historical because no one was allowed to jump the line since Q5's existence. Therefore, everyone knew that Johnny Bow Jr. had made his mark and had earned the respect of every brother on campus that was somebody. Word was that Sanshira Sedano was the sweetest, finest, prettiest, that chick this side of the border. And although many brothers had attempted to hit it, they were unceasingly turned down. Little did he know, the whole setup was a stab at humiliating him further because no man could honestly attest success. So they sent him there thinking he'd be sent away with his tail between his legs like the rest of them. Never had they contemplated that he'd actually become the man. This was big news at Harlem Hill U. As far as Johnny Bow Jr. was concerned, he didn't know what all the ruckus was about. Last night had been one of the most embarrassing moments he'd ever experienced in his life, and he was shocked that Sanshira even remembered his name. He was even more shocked when he heard some of the big brothers saying that she was a virgin. This information sickened him all the more, and he was determined more than ever to cut ties with Q5. How could they set out to destroy them both like they were pawns in some silly board game? If this was what being a man was, then he wanted no part of it. It appears to me that you all think that something happened last night. Can somebody fill me in? Johnny Bow Jr. said, trying to remain inconspicuous. You can the bull, man, Big Brother Oscar commented. My old lady Lolita is the co-captain of the cheerleaders and best friend with Miss It. So we got first, second, and third hand knowledge. You got paid, and we got the stub. So you should be proud because you hit the jackpot, man. Hell, if I wasn't with Lolita, he started, but didn't continue because they'd all begin to laugh hysterically at the prospect of getting it on with Miss Untouchable, as they declared her to be. Well, even if something did go on, it's between me and the lady, Johnny Bow Jr. said, deciding to defend her hour. Oh, ain't that sweet? Pledge J double BJ doesn't kiss and tell, Big Brother Ernie replied, feigning sentiment. It just so happens that around here, chivalry is dead. And all we want to know is, are you going to consent to jump the line or not? Because you kept your end of the deal. This just ain't no blank check. Fill in the blanks now and sign on the dotted line or step. This time, all the laughter stopped, and all eyes were focused in his direction of the ultimatum as he replaced the pool stick in the rack. That's just it. I came here tonight to do just that. So, you're in? No. I've opted to step. I'm my own man, he said, and made his way toward the exit, feeling liberated as he strolled out the door, never looking back. That day, he'd earned the admiration of all the big brothers, including Big Brother Ernie. Even though he decided not to pledge Q5, he was considered an honorary member. He'd made such an impression that they invited him to all their social events. Some he attended, some he did not. Afterwards, though, Johnny Bow Jr. and his cohort, Jazante, began to go through women like they changed their socks regularly. Sanshira, Solita, Jakini's visiting cousin, Nikwan's sister, Delane, and Elaine, the campus terrific twins, Roshan, her mom, and even a couple of aunties had ventured past their sheets. The list was endless. Their game plan was to love them, leave them, love their friends, leave them, and then make them compete with each other to be loved again and again. Many of the young ladies knew what was up and were down. Then you had the ones who knew but got caught up like Sanshira, who'd sworn that she didn't believe in sweating the shorties. It only took one more session with Mr. Basketball, and the sister began to travel so hard the ref had to physically call a timeout. In other words, she was given a restraining order, brother to brother style. This was when all the brothers, homies, began to run interference so that a female never gets to hook up again, no matter how hard she tries. Once the wall is built, one is permanently denied access. It's not a nice situation either, and can get quite ugly, even violent. For instance, one night after a game, the guys had planned to rent a hotel room and throw a freebie, which was RSVP only. They had not expected a scene from a drunken woman scorned who beat on the door with a beer bottle until it break, demanding that Mr. Basketball would promise to meet her at her place. After she got no response, she began to strip and yell out obscenities until the other hotel guests wearied and called security. They then ended the party under the threat of police intervention. Johnny Bow Jr. had gotten in so deep that he barely recognized himself in the mirror, and he was glad because he'd become someone he was glad was a stranger. He'd done so many terrible things, but he still managed like a robot to attend class and put up a front as if everything was copacetic, when deep down inside, he alone knew he was a mess. All the women he trampled on tormented him in his sleep. But in the morning, he'd wake up to continue the same sadistic cycle, addicted to sex, a slave to sin. He constantly remembered the scripture that said, whatever you submit yourself to obey, you master it. You will become whether sin to unrighteousness or obedience to righteousness. Undoubtedly, he'd chosen to allow sin to become his master, because once he failed to become subject to God, who would have given him the power through the Holy Spirit to resist old Satan, who would have no choice except to flee? Although he stopped going to Bible study club meetings monthly, he kept in contact with the preacher, who never stopped ministering to him, and remained a true friend by telling him not just the error of his ways, but the word, which whipped his butt more harsh than any word ever could. There was never a time, even beyond the stroke of midnight, would his friend and confidant turn him away. He'd always end their conversation with, "Man, God's got a purpose for your life. He's just patiently waiting for you to surrender." Every time he'd hung up the phone, he'd leave promising to do so the very next day, knowing he just meant. Every time he'd hung up the phone, he'd leave promising to do so the very next day, knowing he hadn't meant a word he said. His life was coming down on him like a ton of bricks. And all of his 4 years at Harlem Hill U, he'd never weighed the consequences of their actions until the weight literally fell on them, threatening to end their student career. Chapter 10. If I could turn back the hands of time, I'd make it just after midnight. Because we all know that joy comes in the morning.